Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. My name is Alexis Batulis with Columbus, US, and today we have a special presentation for you on advanced reporting for Payroll Dynamics GP. We started the call by putting everyone on mute, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box on the upper right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that may come up. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A with our presenter. Finally, we are recording the session and we'll be sending a link to all attendees within a day after this live webcast. Now I'm excited to introduce your presenter today, Charlene Sorensen, Senior GP Implementation Consultant here at Columbus. Charlene, I'll hand it off to you to kick us off before we start the demonstration.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending our webinar this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to learn about advanced reporting for Dynamics GP Payroll and HR today. Last month, we had a webinar about how to do macros with Roger, and we decided that this month we would do something a little bit more geared just toward the payroll and HR users and give you guys a little bit of love today. So let me start sharing my screen here and we'll get right into this. And give me 1 second to get situated and we'll be right there. Share screen 2. Okay, hopefully you are seeing my PowerPoint right now. So again, welcome to the Dynamics GP Payroll and HR Advanced Reporting session. A little bit just about me, if you don't know me already. I'm a senior implementation consultant with Columbus, and prior to that with Interdyne BMI. So I've been doing consulting for about 23 years. And prior to that, I worked as a customer, one of the first customers using Microsoft Dynamics GP, or Great Plains as it was called at that time. Great Plains Dynamics version 1 and even the DOS product before that. So I was using the payroll and the HR modules way back in version 1 and before version 1 of Dynamics. So I've had a lot of experience in the product, understand the pains as a user. So it's a challenge to me to help you erase those pains and enjoy working in the product. So I've been specializing in the payroll and HR modules all of my consulting years basically, and I have a CPA background. So I feel like I have a good understanding of the accounting system all the way around, and I love this product. I love payroll, so would love to hear from you if you need any assistance with reports after the webinar here. So for today, our topics that we're going to go through are we're going to just take a look at some of the various tools that we have for reporting. And we won't go super deep into any of them except for probably the Smartlists and the Smartlist Builder at the end. But I just wanted to at least lay out a few of the tools. This isn't an exhaustive list at all. There's other things that you can certainly use besides this, Power BI, Crystal reports, things like that too. But we're going to first of all just take a quick look at GP standard reports, talk about the pros and cons of each of these types of tools, the SSRS reports, the standard Smartlists, and which are built in Smartlist Designer. Talk a little bit about the E1 Smartlist Builder. And the suite of reports that we have built to go along with that for the HR and payroll objects. And then I'll go in a little bit to using how you could use Smartlists with macros to update payroll data. And at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So go ahead and put your questions in anytime during the webinar, and then we'll take time at the end to answer those. So first of all, for GP standard reports, there's over 300 reports built into the product. Of course, you own all of those automatically, and you have the report writer where you can modify and edit those reports. They can be modified, and depending on what the report is, some of them are more editable than others. You can also create custom reports with the report writer. This is what we would call kind of an antique tool at this point. It was the original report writer with GP. So it's not super user friendly, but if you go into report writer, you can probably understand what the fields are, and you can move them around a little bit to your liking. And some of the cons are that depending on the report, there's some limited editing. Some reports have some fields that are like fixed strings, so they can't really be edited. It's difficult to link all tables together. You can't really use external resources for data. You can do some calculated fields. It's fairly limited, but you can do that. And then the export functions are really only to a text file or to a printer driver of some sort. So of course we do use these reports often. A common one on the payroll side would be like the payroll check format and the direct deposit statement of earnings. And many others too, but they're not as accessible in today's world when we want to do more querying. Next, the SSRS reports. These are included with GP2, GP also, I should say. And there's over 240 report defaults in here too. And a lot of these are basically the same information as your GP canned reports that were created in Report Writer. And so it's just a different tool to print out that same information. But SSRS reports have some really cool features. You can use SQL scripts, SQL views, SQL tables, external SQL tables from databases other than GP. You can display any data. You can do groupings, subtotals, totals right in those reports. So those are really nice features. You can also schedule those reports to be emailed on a periodic basis, like every week or every month. And you can export to many types of output. So you can see that over on the right side of the screen on the slide, that you can send them to Word or Excel or PowerPoint, PDF, TIFF files, lots of different kinds of files. So that's really functional. And another nice thing about SQL reporting reports are that you don't have to have a GP user license to be able to run them. So this is one way you could distribute reports to people that don't work directly in GP. You can also set up complex permissions for other users, even external users. So they might be able to access certain parts of your GL structure, but not others, like based on a segment or something like that. Or maybe employee classes. It could be restricted based on the employee classes you have access to. So those are all kinds of interesting permissions that can be set up for running those reports or generating that data. So on the con side of that is that they are more technical to set up and to maintain. I personally don't do a lot of work in SSRS reports because of that particular item right there, and I don't have a lot of clients using them, but some of them aren't using them just because they don't know about them, and you might have your own resource, or we do have other consultant resources that know the product very well. It just doesn't happen to be one of the tools that I work with a lot. But you do need a little more involvement with your IT also because of the permissions, and I would say that most of the reports I've used and seen in SSRS are reports that have been custom built. The ones that are built in, or the canned reports that come with the system, are really pretty generic. Just like I said, they're equivalent to the canned report writer reports, a lot of them. So like this example that you can see, that's also a report writer report that you can get. So I don't personally use it a lot, but it is a good tool that's available to you. So the next one I want to talk about is the Smartlist objects. And with GP standard, it comes with the Smartlist Designer product and the built-in Smartlist querying features. So this is free to you, of course, as part of your GP. You own it. And there are some objects already in there. Not a lot of objects come with the system, but you can import some others. There's some templates available. But the Smart List itself gives you the ability to do querying, and it exports very easily to Excel and also to Word. So I'll be showing you some of these features too when we get into the demo section. It is limited in how you can edit or how you can create calculated fields. It's a little bit limited in how you can display fields. You kind of have to use the default that is based on the type of field that you're displaying. And you can always edit, of course, once you get down to Excel, but people like to limit having to do that as much as possible. We also don't have quite as many options about linking tables together or using external resources for data. We don't get the option of renaming fields to friendly names, and you can put some go-tos in the product so that when you're looking in the query window, you can get back to a certain window from there, but it would be limited. So it's a good standard tool, and you can do some very basic reporting with it. So it is helpful for that part. But now we'll get into and here's a example or just the list of what the canned objects are, just for your info. In the human resources module, there's the 5 that you see there for applicants and applicant education, employee benefits and education, post-dated pay rates, and then 5 under the payroll section as well. I'll just point out as an FYI that if you use that payroll object for payroll historical transactions and you've been on GP for a long time, that one is going to take a long time to generate because it's looking through a very large history transaction table. So that one specifically would be very helpful to you, but because it's unlimited in how far back it goes, it can take a long time to generate anything with that Smart List. So we'll take a look at some of these when we get into the demo section too. So next we'll go on to what I would call my favorite tool for reports, ease of building reports and user ability. And I would just say that the pros of using E1 Smart List Builder, and I don't get commission for selling their products, but their pros are so many, I can't even list them all. Basically, there's tons of bells and whistles. The sky is the limit on what you can do with reports. In Smart List Builder, I've found very few reports that I can't build in Smart List Builder for clients when they request things. We can do complex calculated fields. We can format the fields. We can create summary or detail options. We can include multiple companies in our reports. We can link any SQL data, SQL tables, views, scripts, external SQL objects. We can name our fields to friendly names. We can designate the order of fields and which fields to display, which fields are also available but hidden as a default. And we can even preview the data in Smart List Builder. We can preview the data without even generating the report back in Smart List. So we can look at the SQL data. We can also have it create a SQL script for us, or even turn that into a SQL view if we want, right from Smart List Builder. Smart List Builder just has so many options that I absolutely love. I also really like and use a lot the go-tos that are available in Smartlist Builder. That just makes it quicker for jumping right from a smart list into a related window where I can update data. So Smart List Builder isn't a product that's free to you, but it can be purchased as a monthly subscription or a perpetual license. And you'll be able to download these slides, and you'll get these links so that you can go look up yourself more information right from the E1 website. E1 also has a bunch of templates that can be downloaded and imported free to you with the product, of course. You do need to have Smartlist Builder in order to be able to import Smartlist Builder objects. And then I also added a link here where you can see a comparison yourself of the E1 Smartlist Builder version versus the GP Smartlist features that would use Smartlist Designer. It's easy to get confused of which product you're using, but if you look in GP under Tools, you should be able to see Smartlist Builder on the list if you have access to that under Tools. So I'll show you that in a little bit here. And then I just wanted to say that along with Smartlist Builder, and I would highly recommend Smartlist Builder for any client that runs more than about 100 employees. And then this product we have designed in-house over the years as I've been working. I told you I've been working on this for a very long time. And so I get the same requests over and over from payroll clients that need reports out of GP Payroll. And so my go-to has been, let's have you get Smartlist Builder. And along with that, this Payroll HR Smartlist Suite that we sell as an ISV product will save many hours and dollars for you as well. We have over 50 templates available. As part of this suite, it did take and would take you over hundreds of hours to recreate these reports from scratch. So you're saving a lot of money just by starting with this suite. And it's the reports that everybody's been asking for. We want to see the actual pay rates. We want to see the deduction and benefit rates. We want to see W-4 settings in an easy query list so that we can see who has filled out the new W-4s from the 2020 version versus who's still on the old version based on the settings. We want a list of direct deposit accounts and see who hasn't activated all their accounts or who's still on a pre-note level so that we can get everything fixed up before we run payroll. We've got transaction and pre-check run information, pay run information in here. We've got historical pay information like that one that I told you that takes a long time to generate. I've got different versions of that in here where we can restrict it to specific years worth of data, or we can use these reports as the base for many other reports that are requested too. And one of those is a retirement upload that's very frequently requested. So I think you would find a lot of value in these reports just because you don't have to learn everything from scratch. If you know what's in these reports, you can usually start with one of these as your base. So like I said, I highly recommend the Smartlist Builder for sure for clients that have more than 100 or so employees. And along with it, this product really saves a lot of time and money in the long run too. So using these reports, there's a lot of help to reconcile those 941s and year-end reports, making sure that your taxable wages are correct. And then we can also set up reminders in Smartlists so that it helps to watch for your data inconsistencies and to prevent errors on your payroll. That would be a big plus to save you money to prevent errors rather than having to fix errors. So this product is a one-time purchase. And then you own it, and you can modify all the objects to your heart's desire, or duplicate them, or use them however you want to use them. Okay, so we're going to jump into the product in just a minute here, but I'll just show you my last slide so I don't have to go back and forth here. We're going to also be showing how you will use Smartlist exports or any source of data and combine them with a macro to update your payroll data. So I'll be going over these steps in the demo part of this too. So our first step will be to create and format your source data. Make sure that it's in a format that your macro will understand it properly. Convert text or convert currency files to text. Sort your data by employee ID so you can find where you are if you get lost. Then we'll record the macro, and then we mail merge it with your source in Word, and then we play the macro. So that's a pretty simple process. So I'll jump now over to our, now we have our demo part playing again, and let's take a look at some of these smart lists here. So let me go into smart list, and you can see I've got our whole suite imported here. So you can see there's a few more items here than what you would have seen with just the standard smart list. This has got the HR payroll, the Columbus HR payroll smart list suite imported. The objects are imported. And one of them that I use often is this asterisk employee maintenance info. This would be one that you can use for a lot of the standard employee lists, birthday lists, active employees versus inactive. I have one here called primary pay. You can also use this one for getting a list of your W-4 settings and things like that. So then you can see there's several other ones here. The ones starting with 1 are all part of the pre-check process. So anything that you have for transactions, I'm not sure that I have any right now. I didn't import any, but yep, there are a few. This is from your payroll transaction entry window. Here is a summary view of the batches that are sitting in payroll transaction entry. There's one here that's summing by hours, and these were all, you have to remember, these were all built at customer requests and multiple customer requests. And this particular one needs a little editing before you'll see hours under the different columns, because each customer uses different codes for their pay codes. So they have some calculated columns in here. So for example, if I jump into Smartlist Builder on this one, just to give you a quick idea about some of the rough updates that would need to be done on just a few of these. Most of them are very usable right out of the box, but you can see here, if I go look at my regular hours, for example, it's looking for a code called hourly, and I think my code is actually just called hour. So I'll save that, and we'll see if that field will populate here. And that depends on too if any of these transactions are actually 4 hours. So I didn't guess correctly on there, but if I go down here, I've got another list that shows me the setup level. So here's a list of my pay codes. I do have a pay code called hour in there, and I can apparently none of those transactions were for that pay code. But there is this was one of the canned smart lists, and so here I can take a look at the detail of these transactions and I can see that it actually was for bonus and for commission. So that's why I'm not seeing anything when I change that calculated column to say hour. So like I said, a few of these will need some editing. Here, if you're using the arrears features within GP, And this is a new virtual image, so I haven't actually done much for setup and extra transactions in this one. But if you're using the deductions and arrears, here are objects that would show you what the actual outstanding balances are. I know right now there's a report that prints during the build and calculate phase of payroll that is a long report for arrears. So this would be something that can replace that in a nice, quick, easy query. Then we've got objects here that will have data in them only when you have the build and calculate in place. So I haven't done that either, so they're not going to have any data right now, but it's basically all those reports that you could turn on as pre-posting reports during that calculate process. I've got them in Smartlist objects so that you could easily sort and look and see what the highs and lows are. Make sure you haven't paid anyone any extreme dollars, like $1 million of overtime or any pay code, or that their gross or net check wouldn't be over a certain dollar amount and that type of thing. Or you can look also for people that don't have any pay. So you would be able to catch, even at this point, hopefully you've caught it before this point on your time clock system, if someone didn't have hours reported, but at this point you still could look and see who are my active employees that don't have any pay on this check run. We can also look and see before the fact if anything is posting to our suspense account and fix up those posting issues before they happen in the GL. So those are good objects there. I've got some ACA reporting objects built into here. There's some HR attendance objects, auto splits. If you're using some of the advanced payroll features, there's objects for that as well. If you're using HR side for the benefits and deductions, I've got objects here that will show the HR and the payroll side together for the different various benefits and deductions, and the historical view of that. And then from the payroll side, we've got them separated out by benefits or deductions, since it's separate on the payroll side. We also have a few objects in here for direct deposit accounts. So it's kind of nice to see if you've got someone still at a pre-note status before you run payroll. So if you want to make sure everybody's on active direct deposit before you run that pay run, it's a really easy one to look for there. And these things can be set up with reminders too. I'll show you that in a little bit here. So historical transactions, this is a summarized view. So this is basically without any kind of restrictions in here. We're looking at like how much have these employees been paid in the whole time that they've been running payroll and employed on GP. So right now, without any other restrictions, that's the total amount. We can do date range restrictions in here, of course, using your search. On the check date field, you can say is between or is within a specific year and that type of thing for your querying on those. And I'll just show you really quickly in Smartlist Builder a couple of features out here. So if I wanted to restrict, if I've been on GP and using payroll for many years, maybe I want to go into the restrictions. And this one is built in that it's only looking at pay codes. So that's why it's running more quickly than your transaction, your payroll historical transactions here. It's running more quickly because it's only looking at pay codes. And that table that's part of this that's the table that just gets a ton of transactions. Every pay code, every deduction, every state tax, is a transaction from every check. So for any employee's check, they could have anywhere from 4 to 12 or 15 or more transactions in this table. So you can see how it gets really big over time. So we could add more restrictions in here where our check date is newer than a certain date. It's very easy to do those types of things. Other things that this one's a good example of under options. If I look at the summary, we've turned this one into a summary smart list. And for each table and each field that you have selected to be included in that, we can tell what we want to print in the view. So on the check date, we've changed that to be a maximum just so we can use that for searching. We want to group by employee ID. We want to give a sum on those other fields. Anything that's a master record type of field, we would have that set to be the group by option. This would be a master record type of thing too. So it's a group by. And then we've got a calculated field for the earliest check date and the latest check date. So we've got the minimum and maximum on those. So you can kind of see a little bit of how those summary smart lists work, and we can make them into summary versus detail. Over here, I don't have multiple companies set up on this install of GP, but if you had multiple companies in your GP, right here, it's really easy to turn it into a multi-company smart list. If your codes are all the same, especially in all of the different companies, then it works great to do multi-company smart lists, and you can pick and choose which companies you want to include in that. Just another quick tour through here. You've got the display column and the default column. So we're saying these are the fields that we want to have available if they're marked on the display. And the ones on the default column, we want them to be available, but we don't want them to be on that initial view when we're just clicking right on the yellow folder. So if I look across here, I'm only seeing the ones that are marked as default. But if I go here to columns, I will also be able to see anything that's, and go to add, I'll see all columns that were marked in that display column. And let's see if I can get back down, cancel out of here. So anyway, Smartlist Builder just has a lot of bells and whistles. We can do tons of calculations in here. You saw a little sample of the ones we had in the others. We can do lots of things like is not equal to, or is not in, or is in. There's all the SQL commands. I'm not even really a SQL guru, but I've learned enough of that type of language to do our calculated fields in here for the most part. And we can do quite a bit. It's really, really cool. So I will jump back out of Smartlist Builder for right now. And as soon as I've done that, if I've made any changes, it's going to update real time right in my window here. So I'm going to show you, well, a couple more things about those objects. So part of that HR Payroll Smart List suite, like basically all of these, except for the 5 that were canned with the system, the employee summary, employees, employment history, payroll, historical transactions, and payroll transactions. All the rest of these are part of the suite that I was talking about. So I'm going to show you next how to use a smart list as a reminder, first of all. So I created underneath my object called employee maintenance info, I created a favorite with the columns in the order that I wanted. I went in here to columns, changed my columns around, or added or deleted columns that I didn't want. And I'm really looking for, here's something that I would like to see populated. In this set of employees, I don't have my primary pay code populated, and I use that frequently to run a list of what is my primary pay rate. If I just go do this under the pay code smart list, I might get duplicates for people because they might have both the salary and the HR pay code assigned to them, and there's good reasons for that sometimes. But how do I know which one is really their base or primary pay code unless I've marked it? So this object has a go-to built into it. I'll show you how that works. So once I double clicked on it, I can go from here to any window with this employee. So I've got my employee class on this one is set to full-time salary. So I know that my salary pay code should be my primary pay code. So if I just go in here and look at the salary pay code, this is the checkbox that we're talking about. So I want to do a quick sample macro and mark that primary pay code for salary for the people that are salary, and I want to mark the hour pay code for the people that are hourly. So I'm going to start with this smart list, and I have already exported it, and I'm not going to just export it right now because I'm having a little issue with the Excel, the Office install on this machine. So I have already exported it and saved it as a file here, if I can get to it. And let's see what's going on here. For some reason on this screen, I'm not seeing my bar at the bottom, so I'm going to see if I can use my Alt tab to get through. Here's my Excel spreadsheet. Here we go. So I have exported to Excel, and this is very close to what you saw in that smart list. But I always say when I'm doing macros, I always say start with a clean export if you can to create your data source, because that way you know you're working with current data. For example, if we're wanting to go and do something with the salary pay code, but it's not assigned to an employee, and we use that employee in our data, we're going to get different messages. So when we're using macros, we need to sort our data in a way that we're going to have the same pop-up messages and the same questions and the same keystrokes basically on every single record that we're going to use, other than who the employee is and what the pay code is that we're updating. So I like to sort my data in employee ID order to make sure that if my macro would fail for some reason, I can easily find where it stopped and get it started again. So in this list, I've got the pay code listed here, and I was able to fill in my pay code because I pulled this out of a different smart list too, but I have the employee class over here. I used it originally to update my employee class. My sample data had employee classes by department, which I don't think is very efficient. I think it's more efficient to use that employee class more on like a benefits level type of a categorization, if that's even a word. Anyway, so I've got my list. These are my pay codes, and really all I'm going to do is update the one check mark that needs to be marked on them. So first of all, I'm going to go to my employee pay code window, and I will use Ackerman as my sample. Get to my pay code window, and we're going to start. We always want to start recording a macro with a clear window. So you don't want to have an employee record or any kind of record in the window, and you want to be in the window that you're going to be updating. It is possible to open other windows while you're creating a macro too. So if I was on one employee, I need to hit the go to and go to one other window and do something, I can do that. But it's kind of nice to keep these simple, at least to start. So I wanted to give you a clean example. So because I have no memory right now, I'm going to actually pull this down so I can see my data right behind here. And here's how we create a macro. We go to Tools, Macro, and Record. And give it a name. So I'm going to call it something like Mark Primary Pay Code .macro. And so now it's recording all my keystrokes, and I want to use my keyboard as much as I can here. So ACKE0001 is my employee ID, and SALY is my pay code. And then I'm going to use my mouse and go ahead and mark the box and hit save. And I'm getting a question. What's the effective date and what's the reason for the change? I'm guessing there's not one here. I could just use setup, or I could make one. But guess what's going to happen when I make one like this right now? I won't get that same question to create the pay code next time because it will already be there to select. So I'm just going to hit OK here. It says it doesn't exist. So these are the questions that are not going to pop up the next time. I'm going to hit clear, and I'll just record one more person here. So BARB 0001, and this one needs hour, and we'll mark that primary, save. I'm going to use today's date, and I'll start typing. Oh shoot, it didn't pull it in. So I'm just going to hit the drop down and create it or select it. So if you're dropping down and you're scrolling down, you just need to make sure that wherever you're recording the macro from has the same reason in the same order, the same item number basically on that drop down list. So hit OK there. And then at the end, I'm going to hit clear before I stop my macro, so that my record is clear for the next person. So then I will go and macro and stop record. And so now I can see if I can find my way back to open that macro. So we're going to open the macro in Word. And I had this open from my last one, so I'm just jumping there to get the Word open. So we're going to say open document. And I should be able to browse to my AA macros folder where I saved that. And I need to look for all documents instead of just all Word documents. So here's my most recent one, my Mark primary pay code. Open that. So here's the gobbledygook behind what I typed. And we know that I had some issues at the beginning, so I can get rid of some information in here up to past where it asks. You can see where I put in my employee ID, my pay code, I marked a box, I saved, and then I got the pop-up about the question. So really right here is where I'm starting my next employee. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of everything in between there. Okay, so there's my macro that is actually going to happen over and over. So I've got it pared down to what I need. If you don't like seeing those spell check things, you can turn those off in options, and then you might want to turn them on again later, but we'll turn them off for now. So we won't check the spelling as we type, and we won't check the grammar. So that turns that off. So now we go to mailings. We're basically creating a mail merge at this point. So we'll do mailings, select recipients, use an existing list, and I'm going to go find my Excel file that I have my data in. Open that. I only have one tab in there, so I'll select that. And this is going to be a very simple macro where I am replacing my employee ID, and I'm replacing the pay code. So for each person, it might be a different pay code. And that's really all I need to change in here. Then I'm ready to merge it. And I keyed the first two records. So I'm going to start merging at record 3. Okay, so now it has opened a letters 3 document where it's all merged. So I can see I'm starting with bar. I have 27 records in here. If I scroll down to the bottom, I'd be able to see who the last person was and verify that that was the last person in my Excel file. Okay, so we'll say that it looks good. I'll do a file save as, and I'll save it back in my macros. And again, I need to change the type on here, and it needs to be a plain text. This is one of the gotchas about this. It needs to be a plain text, and I'll name it something like merged Mark primary pay code. And then we .mac, and we're choosing plain text option. We'll save that, and we get a little conversion message here. Just say OK to that. And now we've got our document saved. And you can see on the name of this here that Word, because we chose it to be a .txt type, it's adding that extension on the end. So we have to take that off or GP won't recognize it as a macro file. So we'll close it so that we'll be able to rename it. I'm going to jump over to my Windows Explorer. And here's my, I put these in order here, newest on top. I can just rename that and take that off. Hit yes. And now we can jump back to the pay code window. Here it is. And we can play our macro. If everything goes well, here's where you'll see the magic. So keep your fingers crossed. We'll choose my merged mark primary pay code and hit open. And this is the part where we can sit back and relax for a while and watch the magic. I can key pretty fast, but I can't key fast accurately. So this always does a way better job than I could do. So I would say macros are appropriate for anytime you need to update more than 25 records or something, depending on what it is. I think it goes pretty slick once you get the hang of how to create a macro and do the mail merges. It's very quick and it's accurate. So it's a very nice tool available to anyone. Users can do it without any extra programs. Everybody's got Word and Excel. There are a few other tricks to learn about it, but I just want you to know that this is a really awesome tool to use, and it's so much easier to use this when you've got good data. So Smartlists and Smartlist exports, especially if you've got Smartlist Builder and you've got things sorted in a way that you can get good exports for your data, it will save you a ton of time. Getting that data ready and a ton of time that you don't have to do keying. So well worth taking the time to learn, especially if you've got a large set of employees. What else do I need to tell you about macros in a few minutes here? If the macro would fail for some reason, it stopped on an employee in the middle, you want to watch the screens and see who it failed on. And I'm going to open the macro file in Notepad at this point. And if, let's say, for example, it failed on the third record, I would be able to take out, I'm just going to delete out the ones that had already processed and hit delete. You want to leave in there where it starts with the pound dex version and it's starting on that next record. So just take out the records that processed, hit file save, and you can start the macro again in that same window. So it's pretty easy to deal with. When it fails, it gets frustrating though if you don't know why it's failing. So if you start running a macro and it fails, you want to take a really close look at what's going on when you hit the OK button on the fail message, because that could give you a clue of what's going on, why your data isn't quite clean. Is the employee inactive? Is that causing a problem? Does the person not have the pay code that's assigned? That could be a problem. Or the pay code that's being used, that could be a problem. Another one that comes up often if you're making updates on the employee maintenance window is if your adjusted hire date is older than your hire date. That will stop some of the macros too. So you need to sort some of those employees out into separate macros when that type of thing is present. So that's what I have for you on the demo today. And I want to jump back to the screen, the PowerPoint, just for a minute and show you a couple more things there. If I can get it to come up. There, it looks like we're there. So I'll go to the next screen here just to let you know that there are a couple more webinars that I'm doing in October for the community summit with the GP user group. So if you're not part of that, that'd be something that you could look at doing if you want to get access to lots of really awesome educational opportunities, and a couple more webinars. I happen to be doing 2 webinars at the GPUG Community Summit this year, in conjunction with one of my super user payroll clients, Jackie Rickman from SEMSL. So we'll be doing 2. One was on October 7th for looking at the human resources module, and one on October 8th about other items within the payroll module that you might be interested in, especially if you've been running GP Payroll for a long time. So take a look at those if you can. And so now we'll open it up for questions, and we'll have Alexis check and see if there are any out there. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope to see you at future webinars, or give us a email or a call if you would like to take a look at any reports or any other GP payroll or HR topics with me. Thank you a lot.
Hello, everyone. Now we'll take some time to address questions from the group. Please enter your questions in the chat box on the right side of the screen. First up, Charlene, we have a question here. Is there a way to get the employee retirement contribution and the employer retirement contribution both showing on the same report?
Oh, thanks, Alexis. Yes, that is a report that we can do with Smartlist Builder real easily, and it's actually part of that suite already. So there's a report in there. It's named something like with the 401k in the name of it, and that already has both the employee and the employer contributions. So we can use that as a base report, or we can create a new one. Those are pretty easy to do with Smartlist Builder.
Great. I have another question here. Can you use macros to update employee pay rates?
That's another good question, and absolutely. I hope this demo got you guys all thinking about other ways that you could use macros. There's just many things that I use them for. I've used them for even importing full employee files when I had a bunch of employees starting at one time. If that data, any data that's in Excel that we can get in a clean manner, we can use that for macros.
Is there anything else, Charlene, you would like to share before we wrap up the session today?
Just letting you know, like, macros are my favorite tool, especially with the Smartlist Builder and the Smartlist Suite. I think they are well worth the investment and will save many hours of time. So if anybody's interested in those, let us know. I'd love to help you out with that. Thanks for attending, everyone.
Great. And it looks like we don't have any additional questions here. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's presentation. You can feel free to reach out to us at us-marketing@columbusglobal.com, and we can get you in touch with our speaker. And thanks so much, Charlene, for giving us such a great overview of advanced reporting for Payroll Dynamics GP. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.